Chris here. I haven't made a video for a very long time, and I apologize for that, but I hadn't been riding my bike as much as I used to. But I'm going to go ahead and start getting back into this, so I'm going to start making videos more regularly on this channel. I'm going to go ahead and start off with a very simple video. Basically, I'm just going to change the brakes, the front brakes here, the pads. They're starting to wear out and making sounds and all sorts of other issues. So I'm going to change it to the ones that I have on over here, which I've changed about a couple of weeks ago. So I bought the exact same ones to change for the front. And here, let me show you guys what it looks like in the package. So they're mountain brakes or mountain bike brakes, and they're called Cool Stop. And they're pretty good actually. I like them. They don't make any noise. They're very smooth, and they do have a lot of stopping power as well. And yeah, so they're pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and put these guys in the front to match the back, and let's get started. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna actually press in your brakes, your front brakes here, like that. And once you press in the front brakes, it's gonna hold these brake pads in place while you spin this guy. So just go ahead and counterclockwise, and have something ready to put all these parts in so that you don't lose it. So once that's out, go ahead and release the brakes, and just go ahead and remove all these parts like that. So the same thing on this side. Now, before installing your new brakes, make sure that the surface of the rim is clean and free of rust, stuff like that. If it's a bad rim, like it's uncleanable, go ahead and change out the rim. Get yourself some new rims. So these brake pads actually have a specific side you're going to need to put them on. So this one is for the left side. It says here L for left, and this is for the right side, R for right. The right side of the bike is where the chain is and the drivetrain and all that stuff. That's the right side of your bike. When you're sitting on it and you're facing forward, the right side is that side, and this one is for the left. So just make sure, if you have brake pads that have a specific side for each one, just make sure you read it and you figure out which side's for which one before you put it on. And here it comes with all the parts I need, so I don't need to use the old parts. And basically what you're gonna do is right here between these two here, these two washers, that's where the mounting bracket or the part that it mounts onto the bike is gonna go, right there in between those two. So when you take this whole thing apart, you only need to take these three pieces out, put this in, slide it into place, and then put those three pieces back in just the way they are here, without rotating them or changing their position or in any way. Alright, so I went ahead and took this part out, these pieces here, and I'm gonna go ahead and slide this in from the bottom here, just like that. I'm gonna go ahead and put all the rest of the pieces back, and I'm gonna hand tighten this last piece, the nut part. That's it. So now, what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to move this up and down and get it right where it needs to be. Basically, the whole brake pad, all of the underside needs to be touching this part right here where it's gonna slide over. So just adjust it and make sure it's right above where it needs to be. And once you get it there, what you're gonna do is you're gonna use one of your hands to press in the brakes. And what that'll do is it'll hold it in place. You might need to play with this just a little bit to get it right where it needs to be. There you go. So I got it where I'm happy with it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the wrench here, and I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up. Alright, so there it is. It's right up against the tire, but it's not touching the tire. And all of the underside, the whole part of it, is exposed to the where it needs to slide over. when you press your brakes. So now that this side is done, I'm going to go ahead and turn around and do the other side. So I've placed the camera in a slightly different angle so you guys could see this in a different point of view as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put this side in, adjust it where it needs to be. Well, first go ahead and put in all the rest of the stuff. Alright, so I've gotten it just tight enough where I could continue adjusting the brake pad where it needs to be. Just make sure it's not touching the tire when you press in the brakes, and also make sure that the whole underside is over the full top where it needs to slide. I feel good just right there, so I'm gonna go ahead and press in the brakes and tighten it into place. Alright, so once it's tight and the brakes are in place, what you want to do is you want to spin the tire like this and visually look inside the gap here between the brake and the rim on both sides with your eyes, and also try to hear if it's touching the rim as it's spinning freely. If it's touching the rim, that means you're going to need to start making some adjustments. If it's not touching the rim and you could press your brakes comfortably and give it a stop, that means it's correct. But if you have to push your brakes in too much, like all the way to the end before it actually touches the rim, you're going to need to make some adjustments again. So depending on how different your new brake pads are compared to the ones you replaced, you might need to make a few adjustments. I'll go ahead and show you guys what I mean by that. The way this works is it's balancing both sides on these springs here. And so what's happening is there's this constant pressure pushing this whole part on the right side this way, while on this side there's another spring pushing it out that way. And as long as the forces pushing this one this way and the force pushing this one this way is equal, it'll keep everything centered, and both brake pads would be basically not touching the rim and pulled apart just equal amounts. So what you want to do is, one way you could adjust it is to this screw here. Basically you're going to need to either tighten it or loosen it. If you tighten it, what's going to happen is it's going to be putting pressure to pull this one backwards this way a little bit more than it was before. So what you do is you do it incrementally, little by little. You go ahead and compress your brakes, let it go, and see just how much more you need on which side. If you need more space on this side, after pushing in your brakes and letting them go, that means what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and tighten this side. Or what you could do is loosen this side. They both have the same effect. If you loosen this side, the pressure here is going to go this way. If you tighten this side, the pressure here is going to go this way. So it's going to give a little bit more room on this side. So you're going to need to play around with this screw here and or this screw on this side here to get this so that it's equal amount. You could see if I move it by hand, see the way it swivels back and forth? What you're going to be doing is you're going to adjust the pressures just so that they're both equal on both sides. So when you compress your brakes and you let them go, the amount that opens up on this side and this side is equal enough not to touch the rim. So I'm going to go ahead and spin mine, and you can see that there's a gap right there and it's not touching my rim. Same on this side. There's a gap right there and it's not touching my rim. Now another problem you might have is that your rim might not be true. It might be a little bit wiggly. And this happens after a while of riding. It might get unadjusted as you ride. And for that, I recommend taking it in to a bike shop and having them true your rim. But if it's not that bad, where it's just slightly moving back and forth, very slightly, what you could do is you could compensate by making this both sides making both sides just a little bit further away from the rim so that it doesn't touch while it wiggles just a little bit. But if the wiggle is way too much and it's noticeable, and it's going to affect your riding, it's going to affect your stopping as well. And I would highly recommend taking it to a bike shop at that point to true your rims. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and spin my rim, and you could see that there's not much wiggle in it at all, and the gap stays about the constant amount on both sides, and it doesn't touch the rim, and it doesn't make any noise or anything that you could hear. Depending on your new brake pads, you might need to actually give it more of a gap on both sides. Say your new brake pads have more padding in them, you might need to go ahead and further them out from the rims. And so what you're going to do is you're going to adjust this nut here with the wrench, and this is your braking cable actually. And when you pull in your brakes, you could see how it tightens using that braking cable. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pre-tighten it so that you could get the gap on both sides closer, or less of a gap on both sides, I should say. So what you do is you pull on this a little bit and you slowly untighten this nut. And what you're going to do is you're going to give yourself a little bit less brake cable. And what that does is it pre-tightens it and brings both sides closer in and lessens the gap between the rim and the brake pad. You might also need to actually go the opposite direction. Again, depending on your new brake pads, you might want more gap on both sides. And in that case, you do the same thing but the opposite direction. You hold on to the brake cable here, you loosen this nut, and you slightly allow it to pull in some of this brake cable. And what that does is it makes the gap on both sides a little bit wider. Now, one other thing you guys want to be careful about is when you install new brakes, you might have to break it in a little bit first. It's not going to have full stopping power at the very beginning when you first start using these. So what you want to do is you want to kind of ease them in. So basically just also test them before going full speed with your bike. Just kind of give it a little bit of a spin outside and use your brakes and see that they're working and they're stopping you. And don't put them under full pressure right away. Give them a little bit of time to be broken in first before you actually start using them for full speed riding your bike, you know. So yeah, just be careful about that. All new brakes will need a little bit of time to break in and start working properly. Thank you for watching, you guys. If you guys like this type of videos where you're maintaining your bike, cleaning your bike, cleaning your chain, that sort of thing, I also make videos on this channel of me riding the bike in various different places. If you guys like this type of videos, please subscribe. I'll definitely be making a lot more videos starting today, because I'm going to go ahead and start using my bike quite a bit more. You could watch some past videos if you want to know how to do some very basic maintenance. I have videos about how to clean your chain, how to clean your drivetrain, how to change a few parts that might break. I've also have videos about all this gear I have on my bike and what's inside of it. So yes, please subscribe and continue watching. Thank you guys very much.